What's good, y'all? We had Joe Smith Jr. versus Artur Betterbiev last night. I predicted Betterbiev would get the KO, but man, I've been on this bandwagon with Betterbiev for a minute, just like the boots in this bandwagon. I've been trying to tell people this guy has better footwork, better angles, and a higher ring IQ than people give him credit for. To the casual fan or the untrained eye, it's hard to see that with Betterbiev until last night, to where he clearly put his skill set on display fighting off the back foot. But let's check it out. I like the strategy by Betterbiev. One thing he does frequently throughout this fight is L-step to his right, like you just saw. L-step into his right to take away the big right hand from Joe Smith Jr. Look at this impeccable timing. Catches and shoots his double jab and then times the overhand right brilliantly and beautifully. Steps back and counters. Now watch this. Goes into the southpaw stance. Switches to the southpaw stance. Believe it or not, Betterbiev is a switch hitter. Maybe not in the sense of a Marvin Hagler or Terrence Crawford or even a Boots Ennis, to where he's methodically going to fight you for long periods of time in the southpaw stance, but more reminiscent of like a Mike Tyson and a Triple G, to where they will execute a Fitzsimmons shift, okay, to close distance very quickly or to utilize certain angles from the southpaw position, okay, which that is Betterbiev. But very light on his toes. I love that he keeps on L-stepping to the right. He's setting up traps, but he also understands, I'm not going to give Joe Smith Jr. this big right hand. He's going to have to earn it, and he's going to lunge in, and I'm going to catch him off balance. Now, watch him L-step here, sets up a trap, boom, throws that left tight hook, catches Joe Smith. Beautiful timing, shows he's thinking in there, high ring IQ stuff. Brilliant, stepping back, switching stances, throws a right hook. He's comfortable with his back to the ropes in the corner. This is showing he's a versatile boxer. Ties up and clinches because there's nothing there. And beautiful jab by Betterbiev, man. His jab was on point, very subtle. And no, he doesn't have the best head movement, but he doesn't really need it considering the style of boxing he utilizes. And sometimes he'll slip that jab of Joe Smith Jr. just subtly. It's hard to see, and he'll throw his own counter jab, catch and parry. It's a very good counter to utilize. And one thing that's so fundamental, you see him clubbing that right hand over and over and over again on Joe Smith Jr. This is very fundamental to boxing, man. If one punch is landing that you're throwing, whether it be a hook, whether it be overhand right, an uppercut, whatever the case may be, keep throwing it. Why would you stop throwing it? Until your opponent figures out a way to stop it, keep throwing it. And that's one thing Betterbiev did in this fight. He's like, okay, I'm going to keep throwing this right hand because Joe Smith hasn't shown he can stop it, or he's going to come back with anything to discourage me. And just the impeccable timing. Even I didn't know Betterbiev, as much as I've been repping for him, I didn't know that his timing was this phenomenal. It's a little harder to see when he's fighting coming forward frequently all the time. A little bit easier to see when you're fighting off the back foot. L stepping out to the right again, making Joe Smith Jr. have to reach, walking him into those traps, making him pay a fee every time he recklessly wants to come in. And that's the thing. Joe Smith is being Joe Smith. He's a brawler. He likes coming forward. But do not sit here and scoff at this victory for Betterbiev. I know Joe Smith is not the biggest, not a highly skilled boxer, as he walked into an overhand right, beautifully placed by Betterbiev, coming over the top of the Joe Smith Jr.'s lazy jab. I know he's not the highest skilled boxer, Joe Smith Jr., but he's still a tough guy, man. He's got a good chin. I know it didn't look like it last night, but anybody Betterbiev hits they're gonna be put on Queer Street. So Joe Smith is game. He's a good fighter. It's a good test. And to see this performance by Betterbiev was absolutely phenomenal. But look at him, light on his toes, light on the ball of his feet. Good high guard by Betterbiev, very fundamental. Boom, look at that counter right over top of that lazy jab. Just phenomenal. I don't know if Joe Smith has ever been dominated like this or even put it on the canvas. I know he's had a TKO loss and some losses, but I don't know if he's been put on canvas. And look at this firefight. I know it looked like Betterbiev was taking shots, but he wasn't. His technique and fundamentals were way stronger. His punches were way more crisp. Okay, and even though Joe Smith was coming back, he had wider looping shots. Betterbiev wasn't really getting hit with anything. So Betterbiev was winning that exchange, but being very fundamentally sound and defensively responsible within his high guard when he was going into that exchange. Good jab by Betterbiev. Beautiful jab by Betterbiev. Just very clean fundamentals. Beautiful right hook to the body. You usually see Betterbiev throw more body punches in most fights, but he didn't really need to this fight. Look how he squares up on Joe Smith. Damn near knocks him out of the ring like Joe Smith knocked B-Hop out of the ring. I liked how Betterbiev pushed Joe Smith Jr. back to the ropes, squared up on him. What that essentially does is help him generate more power and help him sit on his punches. And there's essentially no way out, clean way out for Joe Smith, because if he went right, then he would have ran into Betterbiev's left hook. If he went left, then he would have went into Betterbiev's right hook. Subtle things, man. Subtle things this guy does. It's not flashy, but it's very good. And he's better than what I would consider the most typical Russian fighters. Beautiful jab, pops Joe Smith Jr.'s head back, way back, shooting that right hand over and over. Beautiful. Ooh, look at that. Double hook, throws one hook to the body, climbs the ladder, comes up with the hook to the head. Beautiful combination. Usually throws that a little bit more in most of his fights, but like I said, he's deciding to box off the back foot a little more. But the temperament of Joe Smith Jr. completely changed. He was walking forward, coming forward, being just recklessly aggressive, and then you saw within the last round his demeanor completely changed. Once he started getting hit with those bricks by Betterbiev, it changed his aggression level. And you saw Betterbiev landing uppercuts, which were absolutely phenomenal and beautiful. With one of the knockdowns, he made the adjustment, noticed that Joe Smith was leaning in with his head, leaning in, not really coming in with the jab. Okay, I'm going to throw these uppercuts. I mean, beautiful performance. He's on my pound for pound list, no doubt for sure. I know there's a lot of people, and look how tight those crosses are. His punching technique is just so crisp. There's no fat on those punches. Like I said, I know this guy doesn't have like Pernell Whitaker type head movement, but he doesn't really need it. And at the end of the day, you can't have everything as a boxer unless you're a generational talent like Terrence Crawford or Boots Ennis. You can't have everything, man. And even those guys, they're not perfect in every area. Considering what Betterbiev does as a pressure fighter, he's got good defense. I mean, look at Errol Spence Jr. There's a lot of hardcore Errol Spence Jr. fans out there. Doesn't really have terrific head movement, but he's an undefeated fighter. He's really good at what he does. And there's other ways to kind of compensate for a lack of head movement, whether it be a high guard or a good jab to keep your opponent behind, things like that. So you don't need phenomenal head movement to be a very effective boxer. And he does have subtle slips that he utilizes throughout the fights. This guy's pound for pound for me. Tell me who beats him. I mean, I think it'll be a good matchup with Bivol. Styles make fights. Bivol does like the fight off the back foot, has good timing, had a phenomenal fight that you got to see those skills displayed against Canelo. But even with Bivol, I still got Betterbiev over him. I think the power, the boxing skills, the IQ, the angles, the pressure will get to Bivol. But I think it'll be an interesting matchup. And I think that Bivol's in for a rude awakening coming off the victory with the pound-for-pound best fighter at the time, Canelo Alvarez. Canelo Alvarez is not a true light heavyweight, man. And I think it's going to be a rude awakening from Bivol going from Canelo to Betterbiev, unless Bivol takes on Zerto or something like that for his next fight. That's a hard adjustment to go from Canelo to Betterbiev. It's funny to me that people actually thought that Canelo Alvarez had a chance against or could beat Betterbiev. I mean, you thought that Bivol demolished him. Imagine what Betterbiev would have done to Canelo. But I don't see Bivol beating Betterbiev, and I don't see Zerto. Those are the only two guys I can really think of. Zerto may be able to present some issues, but even Zerto, I think Betterbiev will get the best of him. Supposedly Betterbiev might have to fight his mandatory Yard, Anthony Yard. I'm not buying into Yard. I saw what Kovalev did to him, and I think that pressure will get to Yard, and the power and the boxing skills and technique of Betterbiev will get to Yard. And I've already seen Betterbiev deal with a pretty fleet of foot fighter, a solid, slick fighter in Marcus Brown, and who was also a southpaw. That's very difficult to deal with slick or fleet-footed southpaws, and Betterbiev made easy work of him. Had a gash over his damn head. Like I said, this guy's the Mike Myers of boxing. He keeps coming forward, and the way he walked Marcus Brown, it just looked like he took his soul from him. Why is Anthony Yard going to do anything different? Now, Anthony Yard can crack. He's got some solid skills, but I'm telling you, I think the pressure would get to Yard. I don't see Bivol beating him. I don't see Yard beating him. I don't see Zerto. I think Zerto might be the toughest matchup, or Bivol, either or. But I don't see those guys beating him. Hell, I think Betterbiev can probably move up the cruiserweight if he wanted to, even though I don't think he's gonna. But I think he would have a lot of success at cruiserweight. And I want to see this undisputed matchup with Bivol. People are criticizing this victory, saying, oh, this wasn't that impressive. It was just Joe Smith Jr. Look, say what you want about Joe Smith Jr. He's a solid fighter. He's a good fighter. He's got a good chin. He's a scrappy guy. And to make it's not so much who he beat. It was more so how badly, the fashion he beat him in. If you're that much better, if you're that much better in your opponent, I want to see a dominating performance. And that's the same thing I always said with Boots Ennis. Okay, you can sit there and you can criticize the class of opponents, but it's how he's beating these opponents. He's beating them like he's levels beyond them. And that's what I want to see from a great pound-for-pound fighter. The resume will come in. I'd say the biggest opponent for Artur Beterbiev would be his age. That's it, in my opinion. It'd just be his age and nothing else. That's going to be his biggest opponent. But I don't know who beats the guy. You can sit there and criticize the opponent, but he's about to fight for undisputed for a reason. He's wiped out as many as he possibly could. And name somebody who's going to beat him. Name somebody. Even if you do think Bivol would get the upper hand, or Zerto, that's one or two guys you can name, and that's about it. To me, this guy should be on your pound-for-pound list. He's on my pound-for-pound list. I'm not so much somebody who puts people on my pound-for-pound list strictly because of accolades and, resume. I want to see somebody who's somewhat the complete package, or has a package that's going to be difficult to defeat. Like, I know Devin Haney just got undisputed, but I'm sorry, I'm not really buying into that right now. I know Devin Haney's a skilled, back-footed fighter, but I don't see a complete fighter yet, and I cannot put him high on my pound-for-pound list because I think there's others who surpass him in terms of skill and technique. That's what I put more weight into selecting people for my pound-for-pound list: skill and technique. When I see somebody who's a complete fighter or who has a style that's going to be very difficult to beat, I put more weight into that. And I know the resume will come, similar with Boots Ennis, complete fighter. The resume is going to come. Supposedly he's going to get Keith Thurman next, so hopefully that fight goes through with Boots Ennis. But anyways, dominating performance by Betterbiev. This guy's the real deal. He's got power. He's got phenomenal timing. He showed last night, even I didn't know how phenomenal and impeccable his timing was. Already knew that he had good footwork. Already knew that he had good angles. If you're trained to watch boxing, you would see that even in his fights where he's coming forward, putting pressure. So he can deal with back-footed fighters. He can deal with very aggressive fighters like Joe Smith, back-footed fighter like Marcus Brown. He can cut off the ring, put pressure, effective aggression. So tell me what this guy doesn't really have. Who's going to beat him at the moment? So, yeah, man. Wow. Congrats to Artur Beterbiev. Hopefully we get undisputed next with Bivol. If not, he's going to walk all over Anthony Yard, and it's going to be next up. The biggest opponent for Artur Beterbiev is going to be his age, and he's, 37, 38 years old, and he dominated like that. It's pretty scary, man. This dude's scary. Yeah, it's going to be hard to beat. But this is your boy Havoc. Find him around, get at me, and till another one.